You guys see presentation here?
Yep, double thumbs up.
I'm going to keep it out of presentation mode because I've got lots of links and things to click through that I want you guys to see that are outside of this presentation. And like Jamie said, I think what we're going to do after the fact, stick around. There's going to be a way that you guys can get access to all of our tools and resources and templates that you hopefully can implement right away with your team. My goal is to have this be incredibly valuable and actionable for you. And so stick around to get access to those things. Today, we are going to be talking about UGC creative strategy that we use for the brands that we work with to really drive that compounding month over month growth. And before we get into that, just a little context on myself and ZeroTo1. We are a performance creative agency sitting really at the intersection of creative and growth teams. We purposely build creative that leverages the power of short-term response, but also builds brand equity over the long term. So it's a mix of art and science, but really we focus on production, kind of flipping it on its head and injecting the growth science into the pre-production process to create versions of creative that we can use to rapidly test and iterate and grow that month over month. So, and a little bit about kind of how we got here. At ZeroTo1, we're structured differently. You've probably never seen an agency like us. We do not have an agency background. We have been on the brand side, and that is where we got our start. Prior to ZeroTo1, my partner and Riley and I were on the founding team of a company called Shipped. I was the first marketing hire, and I think Riley was number 11. And it was there that we grew that brand from idea to exiting. We sold the target for $550 million after a few years. And there we were responsible for building out the performance playbooks, influencer playbooks, and affiliate playbooks that we use to kind of take that brand from idea to household name. That journey, we worked with all kinds of agencies, none of which really were built to scale with us. And really facilitate the scale of creative we needed to accomplish that. And so we took those experiences, the good, bad, and the ugly, and decided that it was a good opportunity to launch ZeroTo1 to help other brands do the same thing. So we work with disruptive brands that are looking to grow fast and to grow profitably, usually within tech or e-commerce. But today, what we're going to talk about is one of the highest most popular services that we offer at ZeroTo1, and that is UGC, or really TikTok first UGC, because that can go a lot of different ways. But there's a few reasons for that. I think all of you are feeling today with the macroeconomic climate. There's shrinking budgets, smaller headcounts. There's a lot of pressure to do more with less across the board. And so right now there's a lot of brands that are leaning more and more into TikTok UGC. And the second biggest reason is that it's a way more cost-effective and efficient way to get creative at scale that you need to grow, as opposed to more traditional creative development types of approaches. So we're doing this a lot more and more every day. Initially, we were doing a lot of production-focused work when we started, and more the UGC is the way to go. And so what I want to do today is to give you guys a view into how we do that and give you our playbook so you can take this and run it internally or do whatever. So this one formula, I guarantee, will beat your account averages within 60 days. And that's not because it's, the process itself or is anything magical. It's the iterative approach towards how you rapidly test, gain insights, and use those to inform decisions on the creative side on a 30-day cycle, so that every dollar you spend is informing the next. And that process alone will get you to beating your account averages, which ultimately means better ROAS. But you're going to look at more granular metrics like thumb stop ratio, click to purchase ratio, et cetera, to make those decisions. This is a high level visualization of the process we use for most of our clients. And this is kind of all sizes and scales. The number of deliverables you need will be determined by the amount you're spending inside your ad account. But most often, like, we're working with 2 to 3 TikTok creators on a monthly basis. They will generate 5 concepts for us in a B-roll library. And so at the end of the month, you're going to have 15 plus pieces of creative that you're running and testing inside the account. And then from there, well, before that, let me back up. You're going to get concepts, but you need to also get raw content. You need to get licensing to use that as a part of your structure and how you set up the deal. Sometimes that includes Spark or whitelisting access. Make sure you're getting multiple versions of your hooks and your CTAs. you can create variations of that content, and then B-roll shots. And I'll unpack all of this kind of in future slides, but then from there, you're going to test and run that in the account, look at performance, try to identify winners, and of that winning iterations, take insights from that, and then use those insights to inform net new concepts, new iterations of that creative, or future engagements with creators. So this is high level. And then kind of the way we think about creative development or production is like a recipe. So as opposed to traditionally, you're going to develop an idea or a singular piece of creative and then figure out how to use that in all the different ways that you can to get the most of it. That process is you're going to flip it on its head. So when you do creative production, you're thinking of creating all the different ingredients or pieces of the puzzle that you're going to use to create a library of ad ready concepts. And the reason for that is a single variable inside of a recipe, tweaking that one thing can vastly change the output of the creative. And so we're not looking to produce a video once. We're looking to produce all kinds of different pieces that we can then in post make a whole library of creatives that can drive itself, as opposed to putting all your eggs in one basket and hoping that works. So it's not spray and pray, it's very methodical. And so it's kind of just flipping the process on its head of what you're normally used to. But today I want to start with just defining creative strategy. Really all it is a intentional set of systems or processes that are designed to create long-term growth. It's not like document or a singular role. The way we structure it as a pod. And so this is the performance pod associated with this particular initiative, which is TikTok UGC. So this is how we structure it. You're going to have a performance pod, which has a few actors in it. It's led by a creative strategist. A creative strategist usually has either a copy background or a content creation background, but it's someone who understands this and is the through line of this entire effort and kind of sort of corral and leads the team on all these different pieces. The creative strategist is responsible primarily for these three buckets, along with kind of driving this entire effort. Starts with an audit, which is where we go really deep on historical performance, historical creatives. I'll unpack all of this here in the future, so I'm going to go real fast over the flyover. And then from there is responsible for coming up with the initial concepts that you're then going to create. And then from there, you're going to have an influencer manager, someone who is on the relationship side that is responsible for briefing out creators, making sure they have all the tools they need and are set up for success, and then gathering and capturing that content and making sure it's all in the right places. Then you're going to have the creator or influencer, or in some cases an actor, who's responsible for actually creating the different components of your recipe. And then finally an editor who is going to ingest all of that content and then create all of your ad ready formulas from the different ingredients that the creator provided. You're gonna have a paid team, whether this is like an internal team or an agency that's gonna deploy this creative, be responsible for pulling all the levers on the paid side. And then back to the creative strategist, who's going to analyze performance with a creative lens and generate insights that can be applied to future rounds. And this is a 30-day cycle that you're going to run in. First step, this is audit and concepting. This is the foundation of success. You're going to start, it's pretty simple, but like with a creative strategy document where it's basically research. You're going to get familiar with past performing, the top performers, worst performers, opportunity areas, missing hooks. You're going to look at reviews, testimonials. You're going to look at key messages. You're going to get clear on your features and benefits and all the different pieces that will then become your creative brief. And this is, let's see if I click this link, if you guys will see. Do we see the document here?
Yes, it's there.
So this is a template for creative strategy. Again, we'll provide links to all this so you can use it. We don't get cute. I mean, like this, there's all kinds of versions of this, but for us, just Google Doc. The only thing to do here is just to go line by line and make sure all these pieces are figured out and added in. And so I think if you are the person driving the creative strategy in your organization, I recommend doing this yourself for the first few rounds, but ultimately like, this could be something that a junior level role or even a VA could help you with, because it's just spending the time to do the research. And so you're going to go, I mean, there's nothing, surprising here that, you're going to find, but this is the step number one. And then once you get through that creative strategy document, we also use a program called Motion. If you're not familiar, you should get familiar. Motion is an analytics tool that plugs right into your business manager on Meta and TikTok. And the secret there, what differentiates that program, is that it translates the metrics into more creative insights that you can use to inform your creative decision making. So it's looking at unique, like uncommon metrics like thumb stop ratio, which is calculated by, of all the people that see a piece of creative, the impressions, what % of them are watching the first 3 seconds throughout. And so that will give you a good sense of how well your content is standing out in people's feeds. And so you're not going to get that by just looking in your business manager, which is why a tool like Motion is so good. We'll often use that in this first step of audit and concepting. I'm not going to look at that now because it's also a bigger part of the analysis on the back end of a campaign. So you'll get, we'll kind of go a layer deeper there, but that will also be a part of this first step. And then from there, you are going to, I'm going to click here. We have called a menu, recipe menu, but this is also a template you guys can get access to. This is a living document that you're going to basically collect recipes that are going to work for your brand, and you can add to that over time. So once you have the creative strategy document, you're going to get into this recipe builder for a particular campaign. When we look at creative, it's primarily built of 3 different components. You've got your hook, which is the first 3 seconds, very, very important. You've got your USPs, which is the main kind of body of the message. And then you've got your CTAs. And then there's metrics associated with each of those, which is what we'll talk about. But you'll start here and kind of fill out options for each of those. You're going to look at things like visual hooks. So this can also, it's a living document. So you're going to add to this. I recommend, if you are driving this process, spend 30 minutes in a day, 15 minutes in a day, have your resources of like different competitors, brands that you admire, other thought leaders in the space. Check in, follow them on Twitter, look at their LinkedIn post. They're going to be collecting a lot of these examples for you. And when you see something like it's an interesting hook, record it, add it to this document, and then you've got a living document of different visual hooks that work for your brand that is built over time. So you can reference back to that. You can pull right from here and add it to your creative briefs for your creators and have visual references. And then from there, you can start to note like ideal hooks. You can even bold the ones that are working best. But you're going to collect this over time. And then with the recipes, this is individual concepts that work for your brand. I've got in this document a handful that we know work across industry, across categories. Some of these are based off of trends, our own testing and learning, but you're going to start to collect these. And this becomes the foundation of the creative brief or creative manual that will go to the creator. So you'll add visual examples. We've got some formulas you can follow, but you'll start to collect these over time. You can sunset them or hide them if they're not working. You can bubble the top ones up to the front and use this as sort of the jumping off point when you create your manual for the creator. And that will be what is tailored on a case-by-case basis, depending on who you're working with and what the campaign goals are. All right, I know I'm moving fast. So again, all this stuff's going to be provided after the fact, so you can kind of go a layer deeper if you want to. All right, and then from there, sourcing and preparation. So there is a cheap way to do this and an expensive way to do this. You don't need a big expensive platform. You can use duct tape and bubblegum approach. You can use sheets and manual searching. I think depending on what your goals are, there's different groups you can work with. So often with us, there's influencers, which is probably what you're most familiar with. These are experts in a certain niche. They've built an audience to support that. There's UGC creators, which is kind of a newer trend, one that we find ourselves often going towards the most. But a UGC creator is not someone who builds an audience. They don't really represent a certain niche. They are content creators as a profession. And this type of person is going to be able to really ingest a brief and give you exactly what you need, because this is what they do as their profession, as opposed to an influencer who they have a level of expertise that you want to borrow, and that's why you're working with them. You may want to pick an influencer if you want to get organic promotion, for example, or tap into their audience that they've built, or if you want to spark a whitelist access. But influencers often are not content creators in the same sense that a UGC creator is, and so they may need more hand-holding in terms of the types of shots, how the key messages for your brand. And so depending on who you're working with will change your approach a bit, like change, for example, if you need to have a call ahead of time with them and walk them through your brief, or with the UGC creator, you may be able to trust their ability to execute and want to borrow their own ability to create their own concept. And so give them a little bit more creative license as opposed to spelling it out for an influencer. And then actors, this is useful if you are in a really specific niche where it may be difficult to find an influencer who can create good content, or if it's a little bit too niche down for a UGC creator. An actor can give you the message you want. They're not inherent content creators. They need a little bit more coaching on how to capture the footage and organize it, et cetera. But you can find them on social media by searching certain hashtags like UGC creator. There's a whole sub community of UGC creators on Twitter and Instagram that you can tap into. And then one additional recommendation, if you're in a pretty niche vertical, sometimes the pool of talent isn't huge or tough to find. And so if you spend the time to find your ideal creator, someone that primarily, number one, creates good content. That's the first thing you got to look for. Content is quality is in this case is way more important than reach. And so if you find that one person, then you can almost back channel. So you can look at people they follow and who follows them and start to kind of thumb through it that way. And you'll get a lot faster at sort of uncovering it once you find that one ideal creator. But you're going to build a list, at least of a 5-to-1 ratio. You could do a 10-to-1 as well. But so if you need to find 2 to 3 creators for your campaign, which is most often good enough, build a list of 15 to 30 that you're going to reach out to. Once you identify if they are a good fit for your brand, look at their video content because you're not trying to leverage your audience. You're trying to find people who create the content according to your brief. So they need to speak well to camera. They need to feel relatable, can deliver organically, not feel canned. They need to have a general understanding of how to create good content. So understand lighting and framing and that sort of thing. And you can get a real just gut level reaction by looking at their video content. And then you can reach out. DM is easy. If you're on Instagram or Twitter. TikTok, you're going to find their email because they will not see your message unless you sort of have the follow back. So you can mine for their email and then just reach out. And then the best way to get the conversation going is take a give before you receive approach. So don't jump in there and say, hey, this is our campaign. Here's all the things we're looking for you from. That is a quick way to get the worst rate possible and maybe not even a response. You're going to start palms down. So give first, compliment them, create a customized first line. Your only goal is to start the conversation, not to give them all the information they need to create a campaign for you. So you're going to compliment, find something in this research process, you're going to be looking at their content. So comment on a piece that they created and give them some kudos. Hey, I saw the content you made for X brand or for whatever. I loved it. Here's why. And then make the connection back to your brand. I would love to have a conversation and see what we can do to work together, period. That's all the only ask. And then from there, you'll get the conversation going and you can sort of build out from there. But do not give all the information up front because you won't get responses. Okay. And then for your creator manual, this is what we call it. It's essentially a creative brief. We've gone back and forth on so many times on, do we do decks? Do we do documents? And have found generally that you want to over communicate the information that you need, but also in a really digestible, simple format. You don't want to leave too much room in most cases for interpretation. Most people will give a general brief with some bullet points, and then that you have no clue what you're going to get back. I mean, and most of which won't be usable. And so that just, rather than go through that process and not get the results you're looking for, include all this, spend some time creating a creator manual. We'll have templates of this as well, but you're going to have all the information they need sort of at the top on learning and familiarizing with the brand, the key points of the service or product you're sort of recommending. You're going to have shooting requirements and tips to make sure the content is good. And then you're going to break down your concepts. So this is where you can kind of link to the individual link in your creator manual if they need a visual reference or they want to digest something visually, but get really specific on what you're looking for. And the most important piece of this is your voiceover or your the talking points. We've also gone back and forth here. Do we give someone a very prescribed line by line script to follow, or do we give them talking points or bullet points? And if you can do either. Honestly, we've had success with both approaches. If you give them a verbatim script, a lot of times it can start to feel canned, and you want to avoid that. So whether you do a verbatim script or you give them a script format and certain bullet points, want to double down on encouraging them to take this and make it their own. This needs to feel like them. It needs to feel true to them. So make sure that they understand that this is a template or a jumping off point. Here are the key points that we need to communicate, but make this in your own words. And then they're going to need to record hooks and CTAs, all of those line by line. Like this isn't like an option, like we're not picking one. Like we need all of these because that's going to be how you create iterations and have that compounding growth, because it's not just about the main message, it's also how you start and end the piece of creative. So and then from there, B-roll shot list. The more visual examples you can deliver here, the better. This is where on the previous recipe menu deck, where you've got kind of the references of the visual hooks can come in handy, because you can actually start to just copy and paste those into the doc. Go wide here, just think about all the different B-roll that could go into a piece of creative, and get them to do as much of this as you can, because they're just going to turn over a library, and you're going to be responsible. Your editor is going to be responsible for ingesting all that content and creating the final ad ready piece. And then, we've got multiple concepts here, but then you're going to have the steps that they need to follow and check off along the way. Hope that's helpful. And then okay, 3, capture and create. This is, they're going to do what they do from this point. I think we found it helpful to set them up with a folder structure ahead of time. So your influencer manager will do this for them. Otherwise, they're going to send you a WeTransfer link or a Google Drive or a Dropbox or text you videos. And they're all going to be, it's just going to be like a rat's nest. And you have to figure out how to slice that up. And every time is different. It wastes a lot of time. So by providing a folder structure, this is the one that we use here. They're going to have a roadmap on how to do this right out of the gates. So B-roll folder, they'll add in all their B-roll shots there. Concepts within that, you're going to have your voiceover scripts, your call to actions, and your hooks. This also kind of reiterates that they have to do these things individually. And all this will come to you in an organized fashion that you can just give right to your editor and audit. Your creative strategist can audit the quality really easily. Okay, so then the first pass, your influencer manager will just vet and make sure that they did the checklist, like all the pieces that you've got. And if not, go back to them, get it. But once that's complete, it goes to your creative strategist to then audit from like a quality standpoint. Did they follow the brief? Are the talking points correct? Does it sound relatable and organic? And then from there, it's coaching opportunities. So make sure you've got rounds of revisions baked into your agreement with the creator, at least 1, if not 2, to where you can pass back feedback and have them do a V2. This process takes a few days. Okay. And then steps 4, serve and rapidly test. This is where you turn it over to your paid team. You're going to give them at least 2 variations on a concept right out of the gates. And then you're going to let that run. I mean, at least for a couple weeks in the wild. And this is where you'll, as a creative strategist, will start to peek into motion and see and check in on how things are going. So this is an example of a dashboard that you could create inside of Motion. There's so much you can do with this platform. I'm going to try to hit the high points, but you can look at reports like a creator analysis, video analysis, but my favorite report is this video iteration. This looks at a couple of key metrics that I mentioned, the thumb stop ratio. So the 3-second view over impressions, and then initiate checkout rate, which is a metric of how well this message is resonating. I think, in my opinion, from like a creative lever standpoint of what you can do to improve this content, these are the most important 2. You could swap initiate checkout rate for click to purchase ratio if you want, but essentially we're trying to look at conversions, but not from like a ROAS standpoint. This is just how well is this concept or message resonating. Then you can look and start to look at, see if there's any things that jump out at you. For example, this one here, Chelsea, this has got, their initiate checkout rate is incredibly high. 70% plus of the people that are clicking into this ad are initiating a checkout. That is incredibly high. we can from there dig in to decide, okay, what are the main USPs that she was talking about? What was the structure of the creative? What was the concept as a whole? That this particular thing is resonating really well. And then if you look at thumb stop ratio, 33.6% is still high, but like maybe there's room to improve, because here we've got a 42%. So what is happening on this Madeline creative that is generating a higher thumb stop ratio? And so that's that first 3 seconds. You can say, what is this visual hook? What was that hook that went into that? Maybe we can apply this hook and this visual hook to this Chelsea creative and raise this thumb stop ratio and get a little bit more scale out of this with a second iteration. And alternatively, knowing that this Chelsea creative is really converting or doing well, maybe there's an opportunity to work again with Chelsea with a fresh concept, because she as a creator is really resonating with her audience. And maybe there's an opportunity to take this particular concept and apply it to other winning creators like a Madeline. So you kind of start to see how we start to spot different opportunities by looking at the data. You can also maybe come to the conclusion that this particular format, Madeline, was a good creator, but it's not, people are not converting and the thumb stop ratio is low. So maybe we kill this one entirely and reallocate that spend towards some of the top performers. Or maybe this concept fell flat. So that's how you start to pull insights, which will then inform future 30-day cycles. I hope this makes sense. Excuse me. Okay, back to the steps. This is kind of just a visual representation of how this works. You have your wave 1 content, test and learn for 2 weeks, optimize that existing content. You don't make a video just once, and then test again, pull insights, inform fresh creative rounds. And then these are the different pieces that we use, the levers that we can pull. So hooks, the metrics you're looking at, thumb stop ratio, USPs are the main message of the creative, watch time, click to purchase, or initiate checkout rate even. And then for call to actions, it's click through rate. So this is the different recipe pieces that you can start to swap and improve that performance over time. And then rinse and repeat. So I mentioned this is a 30-day cycle. This is how you get that compounding and predictable month-over-month growth. You're not just loading up a creative and seeing what works. It's very methodical. And then this is an example of like a creative analysis that we would provide on a sprint. So same client, same piece of creative. We can say, okay, we went from a 13% initiate checkout rate to a 65% initiate checkout rate. That was an incredible big way to start the year. Here's all the different talking points that she focused on. So this allows us to then reference that in future creative rounds. We talked about the hooks here, the first 3 seconds. So these are the top performers. We've got, looking at this, we've got laundry going into a washer, and we've got laundry being picked up off the floor. So maybe we highlight those in our next round of creative manuals as priority B-roll shots. Maybe we iterate on those and say, okay, this laundry going into a washer is working really well. Maybe we experiment with another camera angle and do top down instead of straight on, and have top down laundry going into a washer. That's kind of ways you can start to think about iterations on this content. And then you're going to have from there fresh concepts, fresh ideas, fresh hypotheses using what you've learned, and have next steps and sort of recommendations for that next sprint. And then rinse and repeat, do it all over again. I hope this was helpful. Where are we at with time? That was perfect.
Yeah, way to go. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and send them in. It doesn't look like we got any while you were chatting. I'm trying to show my face here again. But it looks like Micah did list his email there. And in the follow-up email that I'll send to everybody, Micah, I'll get all of the deck and everything from you. So I'll go ahead and pop that in that email so everybody can look for that too. All right. So we did get a question, Micah, from Katie. She asked, how much do you normally pay creators? Sorry if she missed that.
Yeah, no, I didn't mention that. That one can vary pretty widely. If you're working with an influencer, it's a bit of a dance because they value themselves based on their reach and their audience. And so sometimes they can be more expensive, especially if you're asking them to post organically too. I just recommend entirely just avoiding the organic posts unless you're trying to get whitelisting or Spark, but oftentimes we're negotiating that after the fact. So initially, you're just going to want them to give the creative. And so you can get a lot cheaper rates for that. If we're working with a UGC creator, I mean, for 3 to 5 concepts, you could probably get away with $500 or less from a UGC creator or an influencer that is content only. And then from there, if you want to license that for a term, like sometimes you can negotiate after the fact. Sometimes you can just ask and they'll give it to you and lead with value. Say, hey, this creative did so well. We're so happy with it. We want to continue to build a relationship with you. Can we put some spin behind this so you get some impressions with our dollars to your account? And sometimes they'll say yes. Sometimes you have to throw a little bit extra in there. Sometimes the UGC creator will charge you for B-roll, like if you want the raws. So it's a little bit of a negotiation process. This is where your influencer manager is really going to have to kind of get a feel for it. But I think $500 or less per creator per round is doable. So hope that answered your question.
Yeah, great. And then I have a question for you, Micah. When you mentioned like the research stage and everything like that, but is there an amount of time that it like takes to find these influencers and UGC creators? Like, do you have a time frame? Like some people can find them really fast, others takes a while. Like,
yeah, I think initially it could take. It will get faster over time because you're going to build that network of creators that are go-tos. Mm-hmm. And once you have decided that this creator is working really well and you want to iterate, they're like, that conversation is teed up. So in terms of like second rounds of the next month, like you're ready to go. That first list could take a couple of weeks. Like you could build a list in a couple of days, start outreach, and you have to get better at like start to test into your like subject lines and first lines. And so this can get more efficient over time, but I would give yourself at least a couple of weeks to get those conversations going. You're going to need a couple of weeks on the creative strategy side on the research and sort of building out that initial hypothesis for concepts, a couple weeks for list building and outreach, a week hopefully for content gathering, giving them enough time to do that, and then a week to 2 for post-production. You could probably tighten that up over time, but like your first cycle is probably going to be 30 days.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. Well, with that, yeah, if anybody does think of anything else, go ahead and email Micah at ZeroTo1.co. And I will go ahead and be sending out the follow-up emails soon. So be looking for that. And as always, if you have any questions, go ahead and reach out to us at hello@nocommerce.com. So thanks again, Micah. This was wonderful. And yeah, I hope everybody has a great day.